Hi, dreamers. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about the importance of goal setting. And as you know, it's taken me 20 years to get to my big goal of $100,000 in dividend income. And today I'm going to discuss how I'm setting a new goal for myself of $200,000. And I'm also going to share with you my plan on how I'm going to get there in about 3 years. Can you believe it? Is it even possible? I'll show you my thoughts. But in the meantime, I wanted to show you the results of two polls I did that are almost identical. On the left is the results of Twitter, and on the right, the results of YouTube. And what you can see here is a good 40% of people on Twitter said that $1,000 or less of passive income per month would be enough to meaningfully start to change their lives. And 36% of you guys here on YouTube said that $1,000 or less would be enough to start changing your life. And so I wanted to reflect on that because if I had had a goal of $200,000 in passive income per year from the very beginning, I'm not sure that I would have been motivated to keep going. It's just too lofty a goal and is so far reaching. Honestly, the way I stayed motivated was thinking more like this. How do I get to $100 a month in passive income? Then how do I get to $500 a month in passive income? And that is exactly how I stayed motivated throughout the years to continue to invest. So let's look at what it would take in order to start generating this amount of cash so that you can start thinking about it and plotting your course. So this is a great website to go to. It's dividend.com. And if I put in $5,000 initially invested, at a 6.5% return, which is about what my portfolio is doing right now, with all of those relatively safe and stable stocks that you see me reporting out on every single month. And if you put in 20 years of return and hit calculate my returns, these are the results. And so here you can see that at year one, you're generating about $325 a year in income. And by year 8, you're generating about $500 a year in income, ending in year 20, where you're generating about $1,000 a year in income. So let's just think about that for a second. In this scenario, you've only put in $5,000 initially. You have not added in any other amounts of money. And that $5,000 is now giving you over $1,000 a year, every single year forever. So that's one way to look at a scenario if you just put $5,000 in and forgot about it. Let's take a look at another scenario where you can continue to add to the principal and see how quickly you can grow. For this, I would go to someplace like marketbeat.com, where they have a little more complex rules that you can put in. So in this particular case, let's put in a scenario where you start with $5,000. But then every year you add another $5,000. We're going to assume a tax rate of 15%, an initial annual dividend yield of only 5%, a pretty low expected annual dividend increase per year of about 3%, and also we're going to expect an annual share price appreciation of about 3%. And all of these numbers are very reasonable. We'll put in that same 20-year time frame and we'll hit calculate dividend. And basically, this is the result. You can see that initial principal at $5,000 generating $250 a year. But the difference is, here, by year 8, you are generating $2,588 a year in passive income. And a whole bunch of you said that at $500 a month, that would start to meaningfully change your life. And here we are above that 500 mark per month at year 15. With an annual dividend above $6,400, which translates to about $530 a month. And so you can see if you continued that with just $5,000 to begin with, and $5,000 each year, you would end up with an annual passive income of over $10,000. So ask yourself, do you have $5,000? Is there a way to save up that initial $5,000, which is, honestly guys, one of the hardest things you'll ever do? And then, as time goes on, is it possible to find another $5,000 every year, such that in 20 years you have a nice nest egg of over $200,000? generating over $10,000 a year for you for the rest of your life. Okay, so now you know my sources and how they work. I've taken data from those same sources and put them into a spreadsheet for myself as I start to think about what my possible stretch goal could be in the next 2 to 3 years. And so I start with that very simple calculation from Dividend.com, where I simply put in my scenario right now with no additional funds coming in. And so you can see my dividends right now are right around $95,000, which would grow to about $100,000 in 1 year and about $107,000 in 2 years, which is not bad, of course, but certainly not that $200,000 mark that I was just talking about. So how am I going to get there? Well, it's certainly going to be difficult to do without any additions. And given that I'm not working full time anymore, how am I going to do that? Well, now I'm starting to consider the options income that I'm pretty easily generating. And based on my calculations with my low risk, low delta approach, I am generating anywhere between $40,000 and $50,000, $40,000 a year conservatively, which at my 6% average dividend return would be about $2,500 off of $40,000 each year, or just over $3,000 off of $50,000 each year. So let's assume that I continue doing research and executing my options strategy for at least the next 3 years. Well, this is where I go to that little more complex MarketBeat.com resource so that I can add in some of the additional assumptions around a yearly contribution that gets added to the principal and then reinvested again. And so here you can see that initial principal of $1.5 million and the initial payout of about $95,000. But here I'm assuming the more conservative $40,000 a year addition from the options premiums, which ultimately results in annual dividend income of $116,000 a year as compared to $106,000. So that increases my annual payout by about $10,000 every single year just by doing these options over the next 3 years. But still, that doesn't get me to $200,000. So how am I going to make up the gap? Well, the answer there is I would continue selling options. And so if you look at it that way, I've got $116,000 in dividends covering my basic expenses, plus that conservative $40,000 a year income based on options. Right there, I would be at $156,000 a year, but I have one more trick up my sleeve. As you guys may know, I have 2 houses, one of which is a lake house, and I've visited it a lot over the years, but I've also held it for about 15 years. And so I plan to sell that lake house and start to turn that asset into a higher cash flow. My estimate is that I'll sell it for somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000. Well, which will add somewhere in the neighborhood of $25,000 to $30,000 to my annual dividend income. And so let's say I rerun the calculation that at the end of the last year, I have $2 million in balance. And to that, I add $500,000 off of my lake house sale. That means my new amount would be $157,500 in annual dividend income over the next 3 years. And if I added to that $50,000 in options annual income, because at this point I have a $2.5 million portfolio, I think that's conservatively realistic to end up somewhere in the neighborhood of $207,500 in annual investment income with both dividend income plus options. Well, guys, that's my plan. I'm setting a new stretch goal for you to watch me do over the next 2 to 3 years. What do you think? Do you think I can do it? Let me know in the comments. I plan to cash flow like you've never seen before. And I hope this has been helpful for you too, as you think about setting, the ultimate goal, but maybe more importantly, the very next goal that's achievable and motivating to you. Well, that's it for today. If you want a richer real-time experience with me, you can always follow me on Instagram or Twitter. And if you're doing your own research using Seeking Alpha, feel free to find the link below to subscribe if you want. As always, I encourage you to do your own research, then implement and learn by putting it into practice. And as a reminder, I am not a financial advisor, so keep in mind these videos are for entertainment and inspiration only. I will see you on the flip side.